Music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blood blows the lights right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lives. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts flow.
Hello and welcome to the Pun Show. We got a pun panel here today. Is everybody ready to step into the light where the real facts glow? So we have a new panel. I want to thank Awkward, who is just connected to all kinds of interesting people and helps me arrange these panels from week to week. And like literally this could not happen without him. So thanks, Mr. Awkward. Has anybody ever called you Mr. Awkward before?
Probably not. Although well, at a lot of different places, I get Mr. Phil because when I'm working like with kids, it's Mr. Phil. So that's common.
It's the Mr. Phil Show.
Yeah.
And we do have one feline guest, as you can see. So anyway, we always start these panels with an icebreaker question. And so today we are going to say, what is your favorite dish that you cook, or the best dish that you cook? I'm going to go with red beans and rice. My family goes back to in Louisiana, back to the 1850s. So my recipe goes back a long way. It is as authentic as it gets. And I've never had anybody taste my red beans and rice and not ask for a recipe. So we're going to go to Heba and ask her what hers is. And tell us a little bit about you. Sorry.
Excuse me?
Also, everybody, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Heba. I'm a professor of sociology and a writer, and I actually love to cook. But the one dish that I will highlight is a dish that I went viral for almost 2 years ago now, when people were discovering that Sabra hummus is the target of a boycott due to its support for Israeli genocide. And I shared my hummus recipe because if you have a good food processor and some chickpeas and some salt and some tahina, you can make an excellent hummus in under 5 minutes that is genocide and apartheid free. And so, follow me for more hot takes on hummus.
I will say, I'm also into baking with fresh milled grain. Like I have my own grain mill, and recently I made homemade pita bread from fresh milled flour. And how do you do that and not make fresh hummus? And so that. There are some dishes that I feel like once you've had them homemade, you will never go back to store-bought again. And that is definitely it's a game changer when you have your first homemade hummus.
Absolutely, with some olive oil drizzled on top, some Aleppo pepper, it's perfect.
And it's not even it's so easy to make. It takes like 5 minutes. Well, apart from do you use the canned beans, or do you make your own beans?
I actually think that the cheap canned beans make the smoothest hummus because they have less integrity than the more organic ones. If you do, though, really cook your beans and you make them fresh, that is a superior product. But I use just the cheap Goya canned beans.
There you go. There's no wrong way to eat hummus. All right, so we'll go on to Elijah, U.S. candidate for Florida 20. What's your story, and What do you like to cook?
Wonderful. Great to be here with all of you. Running for Congress, Florida's 20th district. That is here in South Florida, Broward and Palm Beach County, where we may not know where we're running soon because they are redistricting. But I'm a community organizer and a substitute teacher here in South Florida, and excited to go back to school on Monday and be with the kids. What I like to cook the most, I would have to say like a salmon pasta. Like I'm really good at pasta. I make pasta all the time, but adding salmon to it or seafood in general, it's pretty good. But I love like some salmon on top of that pasta.
That sounds incredibly yummy. I've actually never had salmon pasta, but it sounds like it would work. What kind of sauce do you use? Like a tomato sauce or cream sauce, or
I like tomato sauce actually. I'm not a huge fan of like the Alfredo sauce or any of the white sauce. I'm big with like tomato-based sauces, and sometimes I cut up the salmon and put it in there. I mean, it may be a little weird, but you can cut it up in bits and pieces and put it in the pasta, and it actually tastes really good.
well, I say there's no wrong way to cook. Is if you like what you cook, then you're doing it right. Okay, let's go to the awkward.
So first, if you've noticed me doing this, I didn't develop a weird thing since the last time I was on the show. I have like a singular fly that wants to be a part of this episode, but I don't want it to be. Um, I am having a really hard time of thinking about what I like to cook. Because I don't really think about myself when I cook. I've been cooking for my wife and two daughters for so long. So I just, to keep it simple, I love eating my mom's chicken pot pie. So when I get to make that, it makes me happy, even if it's not as good as hers was. And although actually, I don't know if you introduced me live or publicly, but so I'll keep this short either way. I rap, and I'm an activist and a journalist and a political and nonprofit strategist. Probably a good quick summary.
I'm sorry. In other words, you're busy.
Yeah. So is Chuck, though. I've never not seen him in his car ever. Sorry.
The next one, I'm not going to be in the car, but I couldn't get to where I wanted to go in time.
You tried.
But yeah, listen, Chuck Modiano. I'm a journalist. I do a lot around sports and social justice. Combined, I cover a lot of protests. Whether it's Free Palestine or the George Floyd uprising in D.C. So I'm based out of D.C. and I don't cook that much because I'm lazy. So, like those 90-second packets, rice packets or noodles you could throw in the microwave and work it. I'm that lazy person who just mastered those microwave things. But I am a Chipotle addict. I do love Chipotle. I'll give you a tip. If you let a lot of that sit in the refrigerator and have it the next day and all the flavors marinate, it's even better. So I will do that. I'll buy one and I'll keep another one in there. And if anyone on this panel tells me that they're invested in genocide or something of the like, it's going to make me really angry. I'll get over it, but I hope something like that doesn't happen. That would be bad information, but I would receive it anyway.
So Chuck, I've been thinking on my YouTube channel, I might start doing 15 minutes or less recipes, foods that you can cook from scratch that only take like 15 minutes of actual work. So that might be something you'd be interested in. I definitely think that like super processed foods are not bad for you. It's the only thing ever that I will agree with RFK Jr. about. But that is one thing I feel like, like food should be food. But anyway,
you're saying you're against processed shit, right? I mean, stuff,
yeah.
Right? Okay. Sorry, I was so confused for a second. All right, cool.
No. So I'm like, how you can take actual food, and cook it into something just as easily as popping.
All right, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go.
We got two left.
Gabriella. What is an MPH?
Let's try it again. Gabrielle. People love to add that A at the end. I think they make it. I think they make it sound snazzy or a bit more, a bit more special. No, it's just Gabrielle. I keep it real cool. I keep it
like
simple.
My dyslexia, I fused the Gabrielle and the A all together.
I wish I could forgive you, but you from the South in Louisiana, same as me, so it really ain't no excuse. But yes, my name is Gabrielle Perry. That MPH stands for Master of Public Health. I'm an epidemiologist. I specialize in infectious diseases. I'm also a writer, soon to be author, and I am the founder and executive director of the Thurman Perry Foundation.
That is something. You must be a big fan of Rand Paul, he said sarcastically.
No, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people higher up on the list of people that hate him. But and I'm on there. I'm somewhere on there. I just can't tell you what position I'm at on there. But as far as cooking, my favorite dish is etouffee. I can't get enough of it all my life.
And you cook it?
And what part of Louisiana are you from, as long as you brought it up?
I was born in central Louisiana, so I'm from Alexandria.
Oh, really?
I've been living down here right outside New Orleans on the North Shore for about 10 years now.
So I was born in Delhi, which I think is not far from Alexandria. Like
not too far. It's about 5 streets and you'll miss it.
Yeah, my apparently it was like a prison. So my mom was we're actually from Shreveport, but my mom was visiting some cousins in Delhi, and it was August, the 1st of August. She got tired of being pregnant and wanted to have the baby, so she chugged a bottle of castor oil, and that's why I was born in Delhi. So I guess castor oil can trigger pregnancy or something, or she had heard that and it worked. So well, anyway,
this story itself sounds like a true Bayou baby, so go ahead. Congratulations on being one of us.
And then my grandpa, he actually, after he divorced my grandma, he was an oil rigger, and he lived in Thibodaux, so that's not too far from where you are right now.
I lived in Baton Rouge for 5 years, so I'm familiar with Thibodaux.
So there you go. So all right, and let's go to India.
Hey everybody, India Walton here. I'm from Buffalo, the 2021 primary winner of the mayoral election here, which lives in infamy still, because the incumbent Democrat also did not concede, but instead went on to run a write-in campaign, defeating me in the general election. I'm a registered nurse by trade. I can cook and enjoy cooking just about everything. But now being solidly in my 40s, having an empty nest and 2 grandchildren, I prefer to eat salad and crackers. I take care of myself primarily as a preference, and I am enjoying eating cottage cheese and tuna from the pouch.
Oh, that's awesome.
Whatever.
I have very old kids for my age, but I don't have kids yet. I am blown away that you have grandkids already. I don't even know how that's possible.
Oh, I am too. Trust me.
So since you brought up that, I think we'll start with you on the next question. There's this kind of like, people say vote blue no matter who. In some ways, I agree with that. Like, I think, especially when you're talking about national elections and just control the House, control the Senate, control the White House, we see what happens when fascists just take control of the entire government. And so, it's like, it's not even about whether the Democrat is a great candidate. It's just whether, like, they're not a fascist, right? And so like, they're a vote against fascism. But I also think, like, if you're going to say vote blue no matter who, you have to give people a real choice in the primaries. When you can say who that is blue is, like, and then you need to accept the results if somebody wins. So like in New York, the guy's name is slipping my mind, but like some people are all mad that he won the primary, and it's like
Zohran, Mamdani.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, you said vote blue no matter who, so shut up and vote blue because you don't like the who, even if you don't like the who. Like, you can't say vote blue no matter who and then pick and choose who the who is. So, and then, like in your situation, it's the same thing. You won the primary, vote blue no matter who. So anyway, What are your thoughts on that? Like, I feel like there needs to be some balance to that, but we also and the DNC, I know so many Democrats that are running for election. The DNC completely ignores, like they cannot get a response from. So, India, tell us what your experience was like with all of that.
Well, I mean, my experience aside, right? Like, um, any Democratic candidate is not a good candidate. I was at the convention last year, and when we're talking about fighting fascism, watching protesters be accosted, the denial of a Palestinian representative to speak at the Democratic National Convention, watching busloads of police be ushered in to silence free speech, that is fascism. So let's not think that because a person belongs to a certain party that means that they're automatically anti-fascist. It doesn't mean that. And I think that the Democrats have had it too good for too long, and they believe that not being the other guy is good enough. And what they failed to do in 2024 is give us something to vote for, right? It was like, well, and so I work for Roots Action, right? It was a year prior to the primary when we said that Joe Biden shouldn't run, he should step down, there should be an open primary process, and everyone thought we were crazy. There should have been a primary. We didn't choose Kamala Harris as our candidate. She didn't separate herself from Joe Biden. She didn't say that she was committed to ending the genocide in Gaza. We knew that these were all issues that were on the hearts and minds of American voters, not just Democrats, but independents, even Republican voters. So voting blue, no matter who, is not good enough. But to your point, when it comes to voting for a Democrat who has a populist message like Zohran Mamdani right now in New York City, like India Walton in 2021 in Buffalo, because our Democrats are bought, sold, and work for corporations and the lobbyists, they will collaborate with them over us, and they will mount a great defense to make sure that we stay out of power.
It's like sometimes I hear people like say, like you're on the airplane and the choices are, like fish or a plate of shit. And it's like, it's actually, a plate of poop, like, but it shouldn't be like your choices are a plate of fish or a plate of poop. It's like your choices are a plate of poop or a plate of arsenic. It's like, I would rather eat poop than arsenic because at least I'm going to live if I eat the plate of poop, but I certainly don't like the plate of poop.
No, Gabriella is the epidemiologist, and she'll tell you that if you eat a plate of poop, you're just as likely to die.
This is a fair argument. So.
And it's also I think it's worse than that. Yeah, no, go ahead, Gabrielle.
I was just gonna say, it's also another leg of fascism to say something like vote blue no matter who, because what that is a silencing tool. That is in and of itself not a lesser of two evils mechanism for change. That is a mechanism of silencing dissent. And all it does is really appeal to establishment Democrats who are centrists, because we've already seen from the party, from the DNC, that the strategy going forward in this new era for which we're in the second Trump presidency is, okay, we have to appeal to centrist, moderate Dems and whatnot, which in my opinion don't exist. There is no such thing as a centrist. A centrist is somebody who their politics change depending on whoever they're standing next to. Those people don't exist. That's not real. And because of that, you cannot build a strategy from that. You cannot strategize with illusions. You can't build a strategy on that. There's no future in that. And so as long as that continues to be the moving target, then the Democrats don't have to have any kind of strategy. They don't have to, they can continue with what the strategy is now, which is just fear mongering. But that only worked once. It will not work again. It will never work again. Because at least we're not Trump, which is all you're saying when you say vote blue no matter who. At least we're not Trump. Is not going to carry us forward for anybody.
And I want to add that
this idea that there are centrists, and like if you say centrist, then what's an extremist? Like, is an extremist somebody that thinks that healthcare shouldn't be rationed according to your income? Like, is that an extreme position, or is thinking that healthcare should be rationed according to your income extremist? Like, the whole idea of like centrist versus what like they talk about far left and extreme left and all of that kind of stuff, but what does that even mean? It's just, like to me, the what we consider the far left is actually pretty mainstream everywhere else in the world. So anyway,
Well,
so
you have to also recognize the history of this, right? So you have to recognize how we got to this moment, which is the biggest lie ever told, is that our party politics has ever been polarized, that it's ever actually been a choice. Because, for instance, looking at immigration, which is a huge issue that we're all thinking about, right? The wall, right, and our immigration process has been worsening since the post 9/11 period by every political party in every instance. They've increased they've increased spending on the border wall. They've increased enforcement. They've increased the size of ICE. They've increased private detentions. So when we get to this moment and we're like, oh, well, this is fascist. Well, then we forget that Obama, for instance, earned the nickname deporter in chief, right? For 5 million people, deported more than Trump deported. He deported in each of his administrations more than Trump deported in the 2016 election. So when we're talking about this, we have to recognize that this is an incremental build, and that when we talk about centrist positions, to Gabrielle's point and to India's point, right, what we're talking about is a maintenance of a status quo that is violent, right? There's nothing centrist about it. That is an obscuring of the inherent violence of this system. And so we can't misrecognize and try to isolate in time these two choices as though they're not built in this history of exclusion, right? And that's why, for instance, when India or when Zohran try to run to try to shift things over, they find that their own political party, right, the political party under whose ticket they're running under, does not support them, because they actually do support the maintenance of the status quo. And we're seeing it right now with the Dems, who are not fighting the Republicans on any of these more violent policies. And so, to paint it as this dichotomy, I think is entirely false. And I would agree completely with Gabrielle that this blue no matter who is a buy-in into fascism and violence.
Chuck or Elijah?
You're currently running for office yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my district is a pretty solid blue district, so it's just really the primary, and whoever wins the primary usually beats the Republican by about 70 points. So it's a solid blue. But I have been watching really the rhetoric around it nationwide since Zohran Mamdani won the New York City mayoral primary race, and it's just really awkward to see people who were telling folks to vote blue no matter who in years past suddenly forget what that means. So, to me, listen, they said vote blue no matter who. Zohran Mamdani is the nominee for New York City mayor, and I expect every Democrat in New York City to vote for Zohran Mamdani in the general election. And if they don't, no one can complain when anyone else chooses in the future not to vote for the Democratic nominee, because they set this standard that we can choose who to vote for in the general election, and not the nominee. And so they can't use that against us in the future if we don't.
So, Chuck, how you doing? What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I agree with what has just been said. I think Zohran is the end of the sham that is called blue no matter who. I believe it's a sham, and that's been proven. If that had any weight to it, then the entire Democratic Party would get right behind him. But that's not what's happening. So I think let's throw it out the window. But I would have thrown it out the window before. And I'm someone who's changed drastically over the years. I cover protests. I really started getting out there after Trayvon Martin, just asking people, hey, why are you out here? And talking to people. But what happened is I got to cover protests across 4 presidents. And something became very apparent to me. On the same issue, people could come out in droves against police terror while Trump's president. People come out in droves against ICE deportations when Trump's president. I remember 9 days into Trump's presidency, I'm in DC, and I think like we're just in a new day. I'm like, oh, this is glorious. Thousands of people in the streets. We're taking down airports. We're shutting them down. No Muslim ban, no wall. There's people saying it with their chest out. This is a new day. Then there's keep moving forward. We're fighting back. Charlottesville a year later, thousands came out to shut down the Charlottesville year later rally. Oh my goodness, I've never seen so many white people in my life come in and talk down fascism. And then we got the George Floyd uprising. Oh my goodness, this is great. I've never seen so many white liberals ever before out here talking about we can't do this. We need to change policing. And we were making headway. I saw that Denver ended qualified immunity. People were kicking their police off their campuses without any legislation starting this process. Things actually were happening. And then there was this one day, and that day was, I think it was November 7th. And Joe Biden got elected. And people in DC were cheering, great savior. And you know what happened? Poof, people disappeared. They went home. They stopped fighting. And it was for the same issues. And then I get this call. I'm going to finish with this. I get this call 21 days into Biden's presidency. And at the time, I thought there was a 100-day moratorium on deportations, right? I just thought that because he said that was publicized on TV. And UndocuBlack, they're a organization that works particularly with Black undocumented individuals, and Haitians were being deported by like the thousands. And I had no idea. And I said, could you come cover this protest? All right. And the protest I covered, much smaller, like 80 people there, not thousands. When I started tweeting, many of the same people who congratulated my coverage, who said thank you for this Trump menace and holding him to account on what he's doing with deportations. Now they said it's too soon. It's a little too early to be after Biden. I'm like, what was 9 days into Trump's presidency? Was that too soon? Is it too soon for the Haitians who are being deported by the thousands? Do we care about deportations or do we not? Do we care about police brutality and police terror or do we not? Do we care about fascism or do we not? Or do we only care when one person is implementing it? So my coverage, my personal experience radically changed me over time. And I think people have the Democrat-Republican equation all wrong. They say it's this person versus that person. And my equation is it's this person's fascism and no resistance versus this person's fascism and great resistance. And if you give me the choice to be dead 5 years from now without a fight, or maybe we got a fight, not that, no, don't be wrong, I don't want anyone to misread me like I was ever tell anyone to vote for Trump, he's a monster, forget him. But people are fighting back right now. They're fighting back right now. And what organizers told me, and I know I'm filibustering a little, but what organizers told me in 2020 was, if you vote for Biden, what conditions would you rather organize under? That was the activist logic, right? Okay, all right, that makes sense. And you know what I learned? Nobody was organizing, at least in the same level that they were before. So yeah, I think that logic works if you'll do it. But if you're telling me you're actually not going to organize and not protest at all, that's not an equation. That's two levels of fascism. So I think the answer is, if you want to vote for individuals, make sure they're non-genocidal, non-fascist. If your whole thing is to say we're going to fight fascism. But I know I went long, but I have to just tell you, it's changed me.
Okay, Gabrielle, what are your thoughts on all that?
I 100% agree with everything that Chuck is saying, but I think that you have to go deeper in that because you have to understand the strategies or really the advantages that the Republicans essentially have compared to the Democrats. Because what you see people now screaming online every single day is, when it's Democrats in office, we have to wait for the incrementalism. It takes, 30 years to get one possible thing passed and whatnot. Meanwhile, they have destroyed the country in 8 months. And it's because Republicans have the advantage of a shared ideology that binds them. They have that advantage. They can organize around it, and they do. They do. Democrats don't have that. There are very few issues, no matter how anyone tries to paint it, there are very few issues that Democrats all fall in line with. It's not abortion, because in Louisiana, a Democratic senator wrote the bill to strip me of my abortion rights, and a Democratic governor signed it. Okay, it's not police brutality. Biden took hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID funding and gave it to the cops. California used theirs for police cars. Alabama used theirs to build up another prison. So it's not that, but there's very few things that we all ideologically. So when Democrats do get in office, people feel like, okay, the battle is won as long as most things are addressed. But what really happens is that once Democrats do get in office, the same hierarchy that the Republicans are using, those same hierarchies are now into play, which is essentially around the idea of, okay, well, some of us are going to die and be discriminated against and be oppressed, but not everybody. So we can consider that a win. We are so stuck on the idea of incrementalism. We are so stuck, and those ideologies still come into play, and they're still very fascist in nature. As long as men are fine, we're okay. Everything's okay. And then we'll eventually get to you women, and we'll eventually get to you LGBTQ people. Maybe this cycle, if you vote harder, just one more vote, just one more time, something like that. It's this same hierarchy. So that's why you don't see people protesting and whatnot unless it's on an issue that is just absolutely undeniable or that operates within those hierarchies.
That's
I would
fantastic.
just like to
Oh, wait, India. I think Elijah was next. Then we'll go to you. Then I have something to say. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to add to it. I left something out. Obviously, that just hearing everything and just seeing how people kind of went quiet. After 2020, people did kind of just shut up and went home, and everything went quiet. And just encouraging people to really get back out there. Even when Democrats are in power, we have to still hold our side accountable for what it does and make sure that any promises that are made are fulfilled. And that's important. And, I always do end up voting for the Democratic nominee. That may have not been the case 10 years ago, but I always end up voting for the Democratic nominee because I do think, at the end of the day, I'm not going to like all of the choices I get, but I still, at the end of the day, understand that none of these people are going to be, my savior. None of them are going to save. And so that's just how I do it. And I understand why people end up doing that. And it makes sense. But we have to make sure we hold people to account when they get in office and demand that they actually do what they're supposed to do, because there are consequences.
I have to say, I really respect that you are not just saying they, but you are turning it into a we by running for your office yourself. Like, you're not just saying, oh, why don't they do this? You're saying, well, if they're not going to do this, I'm going to do this. Like, I have tremendous respect for that kind of.
And I will hope people, when I get in there, people are, I'm sure, going to hold me accountable and make sure I'm doing what I said I was going to do. I mean, that I wouldn't expect anything different.
So, India, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the aunties are tired. Like we didn't go back to brunch, right? We continue to organize in our communities, but with a focus on our actual communities and on a hyper local and micro level, right? When you see thousands of people out in the street, Francesca Ramsey had a song that has a song out that's gone viral. It's called I never thought the leopards would eat my face, right? The thing that drives people to direct action, to protest, is this personal existential threat, right? Is that they're going to take away abortion rights. My taxes are going up. I've seen my retirement dwindle. If there's not that direct of a threat to a person, especially a middle class liberal, who is not always under the pressure of having to be responsive and fight every day, like Black women, like Black men, like immigrants and refugees and migrant workers, right? If they live a generally comfortable life without the threat of something like a Project 2025, then they have room to breathe and relax. That's why you saw people sort of go back to brunch and go back to relaxing, because they had every reason to relax. They weren't under immediate threat. And for those of us who are constantly under threat, we're working class people. We have a 9 to 5, maybe 2 or 3, and we have other things to worry about. And we don't have the time, the capacity, the money to be out in the streets constantly fighting. But what we are doing and what we have been doing is having food pantries, healing circles, restorative justice circles, time banks, babysitting each other's kids so that we can get the job done. So it's not that people are not fighting for our lives when Democrats are in power. We do this all the time. But I think right now what we're seeing is that the people who do this generationally and in perpetuity are opting out. We're like, we fought the fight. We've been on the front lines, and right now, like, we need to take a break and take care of us. And the mantle needs to be taken up by those of you who lay in the bed with a man who was wearing a MAGA hat earlier in the day. Organize your
Yeah.
people and stop expecting us to do it for you.
I mean, that's one thing for sure. That and then the other important part of what you were saying is the privilege. That's what that brunch thing is all about, and that's what people like that you're describing don't have that luxury to take a break. And I just wanted to clarify when you say, I forget the language you used exactly. I loved everything you had to say. And this correction is kind of the opposite. It's more to just, I don't know, to give you another angle at what you're saying. Like, you haven't stepped back. Like, the fact that you're not on the streets protesting, if that's kind of what you're getting at, first of all, without clear demands, without the mutual aid that you just talked about, without press being on board, protests are valueless anyway. There's always people behind the scenes having meetings with demands that are, and the politicians are feeling pressure because of the fear of the people on the street. So it's a two-headed monster that we would have to use, right? That when we're successful, that we use. But the most important point I wanted to make, just in regard to what you're saying, is that the work you're doing now, hence what I just said, or in line with what I just said, is the most important work. That community-based, protection, defense, education, healthcare, all of that, self-sustained. To me, that is our future. That's the world that I want to live in. So for me, what you're doing is demonstrating this abolitionist society. This sounds so crazy to everyone, but it actually exists in communities throughout this country. So we can build things like you're doing outside of the system while there's people continuing to fight within that system. And to your final point, yes, whiteys should be the one.
Sorry, Awkward, you just froze up there. I think that there's like an adage: wars are won on logistics. They're not won on the front lines. And like some people might be saying, well, I'd like to protest, but I can't. I'm 57. I have issues with AFib. I have one lung. I've got COVID and nearly died, and then I got long COVID. Like, I have health issues. I cannot go out and protest every day. And I was talking to Spencer, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he was pointing out, even if you can't physically go, you can support protesters in so many ways, like just making food that they can take with them. You can support from the back end where you're actually committing time, not just money, but just like cookies and fiber bars and stuff like that. Like, protesters need energy, so if you can make food and donate, you can participate in the protest without actually physically going to the protest. So
go ahead, you got it.
I would say this is kind of exactly what I'm talking about in terms of like the blind spots that the Democratic Party has, because I am a formerly incarcerated woman. I do not feel safe protesting and whatnot, especially in a state that has just passed a law where it's legal for people who are in their vehicles to run over protesters. That is now a law that has been passed in, say, Louisiana. I also don't necessarily have another $6,000 to clean my criminal record to get me out of jail. I also have been watching the criminalization of the community mutual aid bail funds and whatnot that people have been completely silent about. So now you're in jail for protesting, you're going to stay in there. And so there's all these blind spots of nobody thinking about disabled people and why they're not there. There's this very much a victim narrative that's going on with the Democratic Party that's really wielded towards Arab people, Arab Americans, things of that nature, Black people. Well, you should have did this, and now we're all suffering and whatnot. And so that's exactly the hierarchy that I'm talking about in terms of, as long as a few of us are okay, then everybody should be fine, and we'll get to the rest of you guys later. Like, that is exactly what I'm talking about. And when you're talking about protesting and whatnot, I feel like when we even talk about protesting, it's almost like it's an either or situation where you're either going to vote or you're going to protest. And not only does it need to be a both and situation, there's the act of protesting, or the way in which we speak about protesting, sort of takes the onus off the people that we are putting into power. And it's almost okay, let's get these people into office and then we'll just figure it out later, y'all. We'll just roll with it. We'll figure out what the strategy is going to be, what we actually believe in. We'll push them a little bit more progressive and whatnot and just hope for the best. But no, these people I'm voting for are my employees. I have a right to criticize my employee as I see fit. Hence to forward that it goes back to that vote blue no matter who. That is the call to dissent, and it doesn't just affect elections, it affects what we're protesting about after them.
I don't know where my chat button is.
I wanted to sorry, Chuck, I want to transition to a different subject.
Can I just make a distinction, not to bully, because I feel like I ignited that last round, so I just want to close a loop on it real quick. And what that is that protest is merely one tool. There are a million tools. It's one tool in the shed. As is, voting. It's one tool in the shed. I am in media, so obviously that's what I cover. We're getting into that whole mobilization versus organizing. I can tell you when I covered encampments, there was an incredible amount of organizing going on, within those encampments. But that's a distinction. And the other distinction I want to make is that when I speak, and I'm a white man, I'm a Jewish man who covers Free Palestine protests, I'm speaking from a point I believe it is the privileged group's responsibility to end white supremacy, to end genocide. There's a different discussion. I know we have a lot of Black people online. I don't expect for it to be the burden of Black people to stop white supremacy. White people started this. White people should have end it. White people should end it. So when I'm having that conversation I didn't name it, but I have like white liberals in my head. If Black people want to come out, that's up to them. But I think there's a little bit different responsibility when you're of a privileged group. And then the last part is that we have to have when we talk about Palestine, there are layers to this. When I interview Palestinians and they tell me they lost their family, well, that's a whole nother layer of like American privilege that I had, that I didn't have to worry about a bomb dropping on my head. So there's a lot of intersections of privilege to be weighed, particularly when we start to get into Gaza.
So I want to go into transition into another related subject. And I want to point out, somebody said,
can we just let Heba finish her last thought before we move on? I think she has to actually leave at 1 with me too.
Oh, I didn't see her comment there. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
That's why I'm here, man.
I just want to clarify 2 things. One is that all of this, I agree with what Gabrielle said. We need to recognize, who we're insisting comes out and protests, etc. But the fact of the matter is, like the empirical fact of the matter for anybody looking at these protests, whether they be the protest against ICE, whether they be the pro-Palestine protests, whether they be any of the actual protests, and I'm distinguishing here from marches. So the No Kings was a march. I'm talking about protests, which is where people are putting their body on the line and have a real fear of physical violence, which is what a protest tends to look like. Those do tend to be racialized minorities. They tend to be people of color. When you go out to protest, for instance, on Palestine, the people alongside us, there's Arabs like me, there's Palestinians, there's also Black folks, a overrepresentation of Black folks, and also anti-Zionist Jews. And that is who the set is of people who are protesting. That's one thing that I would like to say. So yes, while we have to be very cognizant, particularly in leftist circles, about who we're pressuring to come out, and for instance, pressuring immigrants to come out, pressuring people who are formerly incarcerated, pressuring folks who are, and even Black citizens, right? The only person who was, I saw my own student dragged in front of me for doing nothing at a pro-Palestine protest, and he's a young Black man, an excellent student. That's one thing that I want to say. The second thing I want to say is I think it's disingenuous, this dichotomy that we're sort of implicitly saying between like protest and voting, as though those are the only things. And I want to come back to a point that India said, which is that it is natural, those mutual aid structures of some of our communities, right? Watching each other's kids, bringing food to people who are sick. Those kinds of organizational structures are the very foundations of protest movements, have historically been, are currently now. The civil rights movement begins in churches, right? And that is not a coincidence. These are the spaces in which we organize and get to know each other and get to build trust with one another. And we have those organic spaces. I, as an Arab woman, have those organic spaces. I know Black folks have those organic spaces. And so the organizing comes to like bring those and activate those in meaningful ways. And it doesn't always look like protest. For instance, in Zohran Mamdani's win, it looked like Drum, Desi's Rising Up and Moving, advocating for somebody who looked like them to participate in electoral politics, right? Now, that is a form of resistance that looks very different from all these other forms that we're talking about here because it's sort of organized in a different way. And so I just want to clarify that as we're talking about social movements and as we're talking about resistance, we have to sort of disengage ourselves from the white framework, right? And the liberal framework of what the pieces of this puzzle are, because they don't always look like that. And they've never looked like that. And historically, the most successful movements have not looked like any of these frameworks that we're sort of suggesting here.
I think that, actually, this kind of correlates with what I was thinking when I wanted to transition. Like, if you look back at the beginning of the 20th century, when unions were becoming, like people were like literally dying, like not metaphorically dying, like actually their lives were ended because they stood up for unions and labor rights and worker rights. And this was not just something that they went to protests and marched along. Their whole lives were committed to it because it affected their whole lives. It affected their families. They had generations of people that were suppressed by not having worker rights. And so their whole life was committed to their children were not going to have to live in that same kind of world, even if it meant they had to die because of it. John Lewis started protesting when he was like 15 or something. He was a teenager when they nearly beat him to death. He wasn't a grown man. And, like he gave his whole life to that. Like protests are an event. Being a protester is a lifestyle. And, I feel like we have lost sight of that. Like, like a lot of the George Floyd stuff ended up just being like a fad movement. And I think that's what people are saying is it's like, it's not just, oh, we did this one thing this one time, I'm an ally. It's got to be more than that. And so, and I think that's where the Democrats have lost people, is that they're not really fighting for real things and real change. They're not doing something that captures people. And the Republican right-wing MAGA movement has created the illusion that's what they're doing, right? They've managed to convince young voters, not just white voters, although mostly white voters, but Black voters and Hispanic voters, that they mean real change. And all they're doing is changing things for the worse. What can the Democrats fight for that will capture the imaginations of people, capture the, I feel like
it's the centrism thing again.
Is union rights and workers.
Excuse me. Pardon the centrism and take a stand. That's what it is. Because after George Floyd, it didn't just like taper off. The Democrats in power and Republicans in power did everything they possibly could to out law and order each other, and to not only not defund police stations, but across the whole country, increase investments in police, jails, prisons, and other carceral forms of correction. So if all of these Democrats who were protesting for Black lives actually went beyond the protest and insisted that the people they voted for took action to make it so the protest was no longer necessary, I think they would have had more support. But they keep trying to out-Republican the Republicans with a lot less verb.
But let's channel this into what should the Democrats be doing if they want to capture young voters? Like not what should they be doing, or what should they
student loan debt.
appeal to their material reality. If people's, and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez said it best right before the election, when at a cafe when DC was boarding up because they had no idea what was going to happen, who is in office now win. If these people as in my fellow Americans, especially I'm 32 years old, I'm a millennial. If people's material reality is not affected by voting for you or by you being in office, they will not support you. They will not vote for you. I'm a year and a half away from paying off $137,000 of student loan debt. I worked my butt off to do so. But do I still want my 14-year-old niece to never have to do it? Absolutely. Like, if people's material reality, millennials, Gen Z, the generation after them, because God knows what that one's going to face, do not have anything to hope for, do not have anything to invest into as far as themselves and whatnot. If you take away everything that allows them to build their material reality and their futures, it will just be chaos. Appeal to people's material reality, and that is how you get them to support you.
It's already here, right? It's already been laid out. Cancer student debt, healthcare for all, jobs guarantee, right? Like, the reason why people went full MAGA was because he promised them that he was going to lower the price of groceries and gas. It's not rocket science. And in return, what did Democrats have as a response to that? Tax credits.
So
most of us mean nothing, right? And what's missing from this conversation is capitalism, is class war, is that we are at war against people who aim to enclose power and wealth, and the rest of us are being left behind.
So real quick, sorry, India. It's 12 o'clock, and I promised everybody that if you have a hard cutoff, you can leave. Heba, you need to go?
I do.
I think it's most of us this time.
Okay,
but this was so great, man.
If you have anything you want to pitch, let's give you a chance real quick. Heba?
I think also the other big headline is that people don't like to see their money not being used to cancel their student debt, not being used to provide them with healthcare, but being used to kill children. And so I think that is another big part of this, that authenticity, being on message, means that you actually, ensure and protect human life, whether it's here or elsewhere. We recognize that all of our human lives are connected, and that the term "no one is free until everyone is free" is real, because those policies that are tested there, the weaponry that's tested there, it's being turned on activists in our neighborhoods in a very, very real way. It's being turned on people who are protesting for racial equality. It's being turned on people who are protesting for an alleviation of student debt. It's being turned on people who are demanding better healthcare. And we have to recognize that these things are intertwined. And I think the American public is recognizing that. And we're seeing more and more people speak up on it. But unfortunately, it's 2 years late, and the Democrats are not. And so we do also need to move on that, because all of these things are deeply, deeply connected to our material reality, as our esteemed co-panelists have already pointed out. And thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. I love your name still. I love everything you said too, but it's just like, you have the most awesome name. I love it. I might steal it for a book I write sometime. Okay, so does anybody else have to go? I think Awkward, do you have to take off?
I do. I'm not going to pitch anything. I just want to thank all of you guys for coming on. I think this might have been our best one yet. I was very excited to have all of you. I wish everyone could have had an opportunity to speak a little more, but I'm so thrilled because I think this was a great group, and I just loved everything everyone had to say. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was great. I also have to leave. Thanks for having me, and we should do this again sometime soon.
Thank you, India.
I gotta head out too, because I'm in the middle of my work day. But
Okay.
it was so amazing to meet all of you. I hope to be in fellowship with you guys again. Everyone, if you'd like to support our work, which is the aiding of formerly, currently, and currently incarcerated women as well as their children, feel free to find us at the Thurman Perry Foundation. That's THURMANPERRY Foundation.org.
If
I'll
you
make
want,
that my pitch too.
can you send me the if you send me that link, I'll put it in the description of the video so that people can find it.
Absolutely.
And did you say that you have a book coming out? Is it
I
you or-
do. I have a book coming out through Hachette Publishing. It's called Bad Girls. And so it's entirely about the multiple generations of women in my family who have been incarcerated and what the epidemic of incarceration in this country is like for women.
That is an understated thing, and I imagine that it's worse among Black women. Just going out on a very, very thick limb here. It's worse among Black women than white women.
It is, but it's also an all-encompassing epidemic that touches every single American.
I think that sounds like a fascinating and personal story that you're telling. Thank
Absolutely.
you for doing it.
Y'all take care.
All right, you too. So Chuck and Elijah, do you need to go anywhere? Or?
I do have to run to a meeting.
Oh, you have to go. Okay. So I think we'll just go ahead and end here since we need a panel to have a panel. But I thank you guys for coming on. Elijah, do you want to pitch anything? Do you want to? Where can people go if they want to contribute to your candidacy?
I'll just go to ElijahManley.com. I will drop that here in the chat. Wait, am I on mute? Oh, okay, no. Perfect. Yeah, just go to ElijahManley.com and definitely follow me on Twitter if you haven't for good and spicy takes twice a day.
Spicy takes.
And I'm not sure what's going on with Chuck. I think he's got a tech issue.
Signal issue.
Before you hang it up, I did want to just pitch one thing, and it's not for me, and I should have done it before, but I screwed up. My good friend Noelle Cook just launched the pre-sale for her book, The Conspiracists. It's about women and extremism, 5 years of research, and it's going to be incredible. So I recommend checking out noellecook.com. And I'll put that in the chat too.
I would love to have her come on the show and talk about that.
I've talked to her about it. She'll come on. And Colette Delawala from Stand Up for Science will come on at some point too.
Okay, yeah, because both of those I would not a panel, but even less like a one-on-one.
Okay, all right. I'll talk to both of them.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Elijah.
Thanks so much.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you around.